Hello, welcome to episode 16 of the Top 2 Inches Rugby podcast, brought to you by I Spy Surveys, the go-to specialist survey and inspection company based in Exeter, Devon. So, first up, I have an apology. Last week I said that we would be reviewing the ladies' game, but obviously in the main context of the discussion, I highlighted there were no games and it had been postponed for 2 weeks. Basically, I recorded the podcast in the wrong order and obviously found that information out later on when I recorded the main body. So if anybody picked that up, you smart people out there, I do apologise. It's just that I don't record the podcast in the correct order, or in the running order. That gets sorted out later on in the edit. Anyway, back to episode 16. So, literally no ruggers, but we are going to have a look at some of the news that is taking shape this week in the game. We will have a look at the Ealing Trailfinders game against Saracens, the first outing of the season for both these teams. We are also going to talk about the ring fencing that looks like it's going to happen. We will also have a chat with Ollie again. He will be here. And yeah, let's just talk ruggers really. Like I said, there's not much to review. It's literally what is going on in the news today. Ollie, how are you, mate?
Hello, mate. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. So some serious technical difficulties going on here.
Yeah, fun and games, mate. But are we connected properly now?
I think we are connected. I think we've got a bit of feedback from me, but I think we might have to just roll with it because I'm not sure what's going on today.
You got no feedback at my end?
Okay, so maybe it's just me then. That's okay. I'll just crack on. Hopefully it won't be in the recording.
Yeah.
So a couple of weeks of absence, mate. And obviously I think last week you didn't want to come on because you were knee-deep in nappies.
I was indeed, mate. Yeah, that's.
Or was it because obviously Bath took an absolute kicking?
Well, you use the kids as an excuse, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
No, it was genuine childcare, mate. One of the perks of lockdown. So yeah, but so unfortunately, yeah, not able to come last week. But I can't even remember that far back, mate. It's every day mixed into one in this crazy lockdown world, isn't it? But
yeah,
what happened with Bath? What happened with Bath last? I genuinely can't remember.
I think they lost.
Well, that's probably pretty standard for this season so far. So yeah.
Yeah, it's not looking good, is it? But
no, and they got Bristol away next game, which is top of the league, going away down to Ashton Gate. That's guaranteed 0 points, isn't it?
Well, potentially. Maybe you guys are hoping for an COVID out. No, I'm joking. That's a terrible joke to make.
Yeah, no one wishes for that. No, I'd rather have rugby and lose than these silly cancelled games.
I agree. So some interesting news this week, just before we kind of touch on the only game we're going to kind of review, which was Saracen and Ealing.
Yeah, it's pretty dire, no rugby, isn't it?
But, yeah, absolutely. But Bath have signed Tian Schumann from the Shooters. What do you know about this guy?
Well, I obviously heard the rumour of this signing a little while ago, but before hearing that Bath were potentially signing him, absolute zero, to be honest. But, obviously read up a little bit about him since there, but yeah, I mean, I think he's kind of an emerging Springbok, relatively young talent, isn't it? 29, 23, isn't he?
Well, if I go by my source, BBC Sport, he is 29 years old.
Okay, I got it wrong then. I misread. I thought he was 23, but
played for Bordeaux in the French top 14, as well as the Bulls in Super Rugby.
Okay, either way. You might be right then, but I mean, he looks. I've seen some highlight reels and stuff. You know, he's obviously got a bit of skill, bit of talent. So it's just one of those, isn't it? They've obviously scouted him out as a decent potential sort of. Well, I imagine sort of first choice 10 because Priestland's on the move, I think, at the end of the season anyway, and they've been on the lookout for a number 110 for a little while now. So hopefully he's going to do the job, but you just never know.
Yeah,
you never know.
You guys were after Henry Pollard for a bit, weren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the way, isn't it? Especially clubs like Bath, you just get linked with every. If you say you're looking for a 10, you get linked with every every sort of rumor in the thing. But yeah, I know. I think he was mentioned. Cruden was mentioned at one point, wasn't he? And then Marcus Smith, I think, more recently as well. But which would have been nice. That would have been a nice one.
I think Marcus Smith would have been a better, long term maybe.
Yeah, I guess there's a couple of youngsters at Bath which they're maybe thinking of them as the long term, but I think in particular this Orlando Bailey is touted as the next Bath, potentially sort of working his way up to be the main senior first choice number 10. I think he's done England honours in coming up the ranks under 20s and all that. So yeah, and obviously you got the likes of de Glanville. They seem to prefer at fullback, but he can play 10.
Can Redbath play 10?
Yeah, he can play 10 as well. I think he is preferred as a centre again, isn't he? But he can play 10. So yeah, there's options there. I think it's just really having a number one guy who's probably more senior and experienced to bring the youngsters on is what's needed at the moment, isn't it? But
yeah, absolutely.
But
it'd be interesting to see how it goes.
Hope.
Article.
Sorry, mate.
The article that I'm kind of reading is he starts training on Tuesday with the Bath boys.
Yeah, he's
already in the country. He's already self-isolated and
ready to go.
Ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, so all being well, I mean, he may well be in contention for the next Prem game, isn't it? In just over a week, but we shall see how he beds in with the training and the squad and everything. But
absolutely,
it'd be nice if it's the catalyst to kickstart our season because they haven't started yet.
No, mate, they certainly haven't. And it's nice to see that the order's being resumed and that Tigers are above that.
Oh, yeah. That won't be like that at the end of the season, mate.
Well, leading on to that, it looks like there won't be any relegation this season, but promotion from the Championship.
Yeah, that's the chat, isn't it? I think it's more than just chat now as well, by sounds. But I don't think it's confirmed. But I think from the reports I've read and where the reports are coming from, it sounds like it's going to be announced fairly soon. So
yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Well, how do I feel? How do you feel?
Well, I mean, I think it's a tough one, isn't it? I mean, at the end of the day, I'm guessing it's all kind of money orientated, isn't it? And the guy, trying to make sure the Premiership clubs survive.
Yeah.
But there's also talk that the Championship might not even happen at the moment.
Yeah.
So I've heard on different things and that the Championship clubs don't really want to play because unless they've got fans coming in because they can't afford it.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. There's certainly a number of them, isn't it? Who have said that, I think, but not all of them, but a big group of them, I think. But yeah, it's. I mean, fundamentally, I'm personally a sort of opposer of the idea of ring fencing in the Premiership because I think it's in my view, just not a good thing to have because you just get a load of dead rubber games in the bottom end of the certainly the latter end of the season and the bottom end of the league, which is that's where you get. I mean, you see it in other leagues across the world where there's just empty stadiums and because the games just are meaningless, aren't they? But having said that, if you're ever going to do it in the crazy world that we're living in now, there is actually a lot of sense in doing it, providing as they're talking about it is just a temporary thing, isn't it, for a year or two? But
maybe 1 or 2 seasons.
Yeah, and I
guess ultimately then. That gives the Championship teams time to recover.
Exactly, everyone sort of gets some sort of stability back again, isn't it? But the report I read of what suggests is at the moment, I think the most likely outcome is I don't know what you've read, but if you've read similar, but they're talking about ring fencing, bringing one team up to make it a 13-team league next season, and doing it over 2 seasons. The second season it'll be a 14-team league. And then after that, keeping it as a 14-team league, and instead of straight relegation, you'll have bottom side in the Premiership having a playoff game at the end of the season against the top of the Championship, which actually I think is quite a good idea as well, because if you end up bottom of the pile, at least you get one last one last hoorah to try and save your season, sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the whole jeopardy then, isn't it? There is the chance that you might lose.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. The Premiership is obviously going to be a lot harder going than the Championship, and after a long season, I mean, I guess my only concern would be, so what would that be? An extra couple of games per season for each club is for player welfare again.
Yeah, but I think it depends how they arrange it. Or I think that you need to cut out some of the other games. And my view is the sort of Premiership Cup. Is it called Premiership Cup now? The that's certainly
nobody cares cup.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly one. I mean most of the clubs for certainly the beginning rounds they put out their sort of second stream and amateur sides anyway, don't they? So amateur academy, sorry, not amateur.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the way, if you want to keep that competition going, just make it that your senior squad players aren't allowed to be involved in it, sort of thing. Make it unofficially an academy competition or something. But that's a way, in my view, of losing some games, because I think just the Premiership and the European Championship is the European Cups is enough, isn't it? Yeah, when you mix in all your internationals and everything. But
absolutely.
But we're not in charge, are we? So
no, we're not, mate. Maybe we should be.
Maybe we should. Yeah.
So then let's just move on to the Ealing Sale game. Obviously, that's played over the weekend.
Sarries.
Sarries and Ealing. We all know the outcome that Ealing kind of won 27-26.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, Billy Vunipola was the only international kind of playing. Well, saying that they had international players, but those six international players, was there?
6 internationals. Yeah, I think there was
a few.
Yeah, I think it was either 6 or 7. Yeah, he dropped out last minute, but you had like Duncan Taylor, and a couple of other of the internationals. But obviously, it wasn't great result for Ealing, wasn't it? But it wasn't in any way a full strength Sarries side, was it?
No, and I guess it's kind of it shows that those stars are going to have to play a bit more, especially against Ealing.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how I read it. I think Ealing, I think are. I'm not an expert on the Championship, but I think as it stands at the moment, Ealing are a little bit sort of ahead of the rest of the pack in the Championship as far as the sort of the money. They've got a lot of money behind them, haven't they? But the strength of their squad. So I think it's probably a case of that sort of starting squad that Sarries put out would handle the majority of games in the Championship. But you're right. They might have to bring the few more of the big guns out to make sure they do the job against the likes of Ealing, isn't it? But
absolutely. It's going to be. I don't think the Championship's probably going to go off. To be honest with you, I just think it's with the current situation, and it might not even happen this year.
I think they're at the moment, isn't it? They're talking about starting it in March. Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if all goes to plan with vaccinations and all the rest of it, then in theory, there's no reason why it shouldn't. They might have to start behind closed doors and gradually bring crowds back in, sort of thing. But if they include it as the sort of elite sport side of things, like they have with the Premiership guys, then it can be controlled and measured in that way, isn't it? So it potentially could be done. But yeah, I mean, I agree, there is a big risk that it may not. And then what happens with relegation, promotion?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sarries will be coming back up, whatever, I think.
I agree. And I guess I'm just a little bit skeptical around what you're saying, just because obviously last week I touched on the fact that in the ladies' game they weren't actually being tested. I couldn't believe that.
Well, that's just madness, mate. I to be honest, I didn't even know that until I heard you report that. But that's just well, the same as you. It's just baffling. I don't really understand even how that situation arose. But obviously, it's been it's been highlighted as it should have been a long time ago now, and they paused the game until pending an investigation as to how they're going to proceed, isn't it? But
yeah, which is a massive shame because there's some. Obviously, as I've been reporting, there's games dropping like each week, and I was just like, well, why the hell is this happening there?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a shame because, like I've said before, Harlequins and Saracen ladies are going well. Loughborough Lightning are doing well. The Exeter Chiefs ladies in their first season are starting to put a run of games together.
Yeah, they're starting to come good, aren't they?
Unity. Absolutely. So it's just really disappointing that the kind of people behind the scenes haven't kind of protected the ladies as much as they should have, really, like they have done in the men's game.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, it's classed as an elite sport in the same way that the men's game is. So there's just makes no logical sense why it shouldn't be under the same controls and measures, isn't it? But
I agree.
Aside from that, with a couple of weeks pause on the men's game, you could have been focusing on watching a bit of the women's game. Everyone having more crowds getting involved with that, isn't it? Which all spectators, TV spectators, and the likes.
Absolutely. You could have easily just switched BT Sport over and gone and watched the women's game, which would have brought that they've missed
a trick.
The foreground. And yeah, I agree.
Anyway, it's all hindsight. It's a crazy world. This darn COVID. How are you enjoying lockdown, Gareth? I'm absolutely loving it personally.
Well,
it's all right.
It's all right.
I mean, it's different for
me, mate, isn't it? Because obviously with what I do, I'm out and about. So
yeah,
it's a bit different.
It's a bit different.
It's
all right.
Rubbish, though, isn't it? Come on, it's rubbish.
No, it is. Yeah, it just gives me more time to plot my fantasy rugby team and your downfall.
Anyway,
that's if we ever get back to playing rugby again.
True. Very true.
Sanderson.
Pat Sanderson.
Yeah.
Named as the director of rugby. That is bloody awesome news for sale.
That really is. Yeah, that's potentially a really, really good signing for them, isn't it? He's obviously, well, I think we all know his caliber and background and what he's been doing the last few years with Sarries, isn't it? So
yeah.
I mean, that could be really good for them. It's not like he's going into a struggling squad and club or anything either, is he?
They've got some quality players.
Are they in fourth at the moment or fifth? Is it? But they're a top four side essentially, aren't they? With what they've got there, isn't it? So
absolutely.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Be interesting to see.
I mean, he's got the credit. Not the credit.
The caliber.
The experience.
He's won European titles with Saracens and premierships and stuff. So
it's probably
going to be a really.
It could consolidate
Sale
and push them on more.
Maybe when Steve Diamond hasn't been able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Steve Diamond is a fantastic coach and director of rugby, but just be there. Sanderson's obviously going to come with a few different ideas and tricks up his sleeve, isn't it? So it'll just be interesting. I think from what I've heard, he's a very he's similar to Steve Diamond in some way. Like he's very outspoken and doesn't pull any punches with the players, that sort of thing. So there'd be no real change for the squad like that, is it? So. That's a good thing, but it's a big loss for Sarries as well. I think, or big man to replace, isn't it? Because he's been an integral part of their success over the last few years. He's certainly a front man, isn't he? He's normally the guy doing all a lot of the pre-match interviews and stuff, isn't he? Or post-match interviews, probably more than Mark McCall over the years. But
I'd agree.
It'd be interesting to see how it goes. Yeah, like you say, it could be could make sure
could be a really good signing.
Serious contenders potentially this season if it all clicks pretty quickly.
Yeah, I agree. Now I can't remember. Was there anything else on the chat list?
I mean, obviously there's the announcements of the England squad and stuff.
Was there anything else?
Before we move on to
that? I don't think so. Signings and stuff, wasn't it? We've sort of covered. Do you hear Danny Sips has been being chatted by Dean Richards over at Newcastle?
Is he? No,
Is he? No, I didn't know.
Yeah,
that.
apparently he's Dean Richards and Newcastle are trying to persuade him to take a short-term. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, mate.
Yeah, I can hear you, mate.
Short-term sort of loan deal, I think, until, or not even a loan now because he's not with the club, is he? But short-term deal until the end of the season, I think, is what they're trying to tease out of him.
I don't think that's.
I don't think that's a good. I don't see why they're doing that.
Well, I don't know. They're looking.
I mean,
are they
looking
signing
for another Andy
Sorry?
Good?
Are they looking for another?
Are they looking for another Andy Good?
Short-term deal.
Coming and saves the day.
Not that they need saving.
Not that they need saving.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the way I read it. Is yeah, agree. Something very similar to that. Just that was a save the day to try and prevent relegation, wasn't it? But I guess they're looking for the opposite now, isn't it? And someone to continue and solidify the success they've had so far, because they're obviously top four, but it's maintaining and keeping that for the season is the real challenge. So is he thinking if you bring someone like that in, that gives them an extra boost to do that? But don't know, it's one of those, isn't it? Even with Danny Sips, like we discussed it with when we heard the news about Gloucester potentially Bath after him, but it could go either way with him, unfortunately, isn't it? But
yeah, and I guess we know with Dean Richards at the helm, it potentially could go in a better than maybe somebody that's not as strong as Richards as a director of rugby.
Yeah, I guess Richards would soon kick him out if there's any problems, wouldn't he? But
yeah, I'd imagine so.
Yeah, I'd imagine so.
But
so on to Eddie Jones, England selection for the Six Nations.
Yeah.
Obviously, in the press, there's been talked about the kind of reduced squad and things like that. Do you think there's going to be many kind of massive changes, or do you think he's just going to stick to the tried and tested squad that he's kind of gone for before?
I don't know really, mate. It's always hard to try and second guess Eddie Jones, isn't it? But
True.
I think he'll probably, in the main, go for the sort of standard squad members as it is or has been of late. But I think looking back, actually, at the beginning of Six Nations, he has brought in a couple of sort of what you would say are outsider selections. Historically, I think he's done that at the beginning of the Six Nations. I think last year was when he introduced sort of Fraser Dingwall and
the other Northampton lad.
Furbank. That's it. Yeah. So potentially there might be a couple, but I don't think it's certainly not going to be. Well, it doesn't need to be an overhaul, does it? But be nice to see a couple of new faces given a chance, wouldn't it? But who they might be is the question.
Well, I think you probably got to look at the old scrum half, haven't you, from Bristol?
Yeah, it'd be nice to see him have given a shout. Yeah.
And I know he's Leicester, but Ben Young's probably step aside. You got Dan Robson starting, and the Bristol lad. Maybe on the bench. Someone for the last 10 minutes. Show us what he can do. Against the likes of Italy, and maybe the lesser teams in the competition.
Yeah, Wales. I mean, I don't disagree with that personally, but I think Eddie Jones, knowing him, he's obviously a big fan of Ben Young's more than anyone else at scrum half. It's probably more likely Dan Robson would lose out, and if he's going to pick someone like Randall, then it'll be Ben Young starting with Randall on the bench, sort of thing. I would say, but
interesting.
You never know. No, I agree. On form, it should be. Robson should be there without a doubt, shouldn't he? And potentially Ben Spencer, Harry Randall. Those three are probably your three.
He doesn't like Ben Spencer.
I don't. Yeah, no, for some reason. But I don't think he's a huge fan of Robson, is he? He's had him in his squads, but he's not really played him much, has he?
No, that's true.
But
I do think Gold Spencer fits in with the likes of the Simmons brothers. Great form for their clubs, but not even on the radar.
Yeah, you don't think even Joe Simmons might get an outsider call up this time?
No, I don't. Unfortunately,
I think you're probably right. I know there's people obviously saying he should be and might be, but No, I agree. I just, for some reason, I don't think he's, certainly at the moment, they're not on the radar, are they?
No, which is a shame.
No, which is a shame because they should be.
Yeah, they should. And yeah,
without doubt.
There we go. There's only so many spaces, and you got to put your trust in Eddie.
Absolutely, you do.
Absolutely, you do. In Eddie, we trust.
So, do you think it's going to be a similar kind of contest to last year?
England and France battling it out. Maybe Ireland could tip up and play a bit if they've got a plan B.
Scotland could be in the mix. Finn Russell's playing well, isn't he?
Finn Russell's playing well, isn't he? And obviously, what's the Exeter lad? The fullback. Can't think
of his name.
Stuart Hogg.
Yeah, is he injured still?
I think he is still injured, but I don't know. I don't know if it means he's out of the Six Nations or not. But he's not featured for certainly for Chiefs for a couple of games, has he? A couple of rounds.
No.
But I can't see it being. I mean, France have got to be probably your favourites. I would say. But yeah, France and England 1 and 2 as favourites, but potentially Ireland 3 and third favourite. They sort of started to put a little bit of rugby together, didn't they? In some form.
Yeah.
But I like some of the Rugby Scotland play as well. It's just whether they can get a bit of consistency in it.
Yeah.
Wales, you've got to think.
Yeah.
Still potentially
still
struggling a bit, aren't they?
period.
And unfortunately, Italy are always knocking around the bottom there, aren't they? Sadly, but
yeah.
Is that 6? Have I missed anyone?
So that's the kind of
I
think that's going to be.
For me, I think you're
probably looking at France winning,
but not a Grand Slam.
England second, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Italy.
Yeah, I haven't actually studied the fixtures, but I think this season is. I think we've got France.
It's where England are away.
It's where England
I think
are
we're
away,
home to France, aren't we?
Sure.
I'm not sure.
Maybe we should have done better research. Are you researching it now?
Yeah, I'm just trying to have a quick look. Carry on chatting.
So you want me to fill this little gap?
Yeah.
Could this be lost in the editing process?
No, keep it in.
It's real. This is live.
It's real.
It's live recordings.
You in your van,
me on the bed.
Okay, yeah, we've got
how we roll.
I know that it's Scotland home first game. I think normally if you've got Scotland home, it works out Italy and France home as well, and then Ireland and Wales away, isn't it? But I'm just double checking.
Okay.
Yeah, France home.
Oh, that's good. So that, yeah.
Oh, that's good. Okay. So that, yeah. Okay. That might make me differ my mind a bit then.
So we've got Ireland and Wales away, and the other 3 at home.
Interesting.
So yeah, that. In theory, that should make us favourites, I guess, having France and Scotland at home. But are there going to be crowds? Because that makes a difference as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I don't think they will.
Yeah, it does.
No, I don't think they will.
It's going to be behind locked doors.
It's going to be behind locked doors, isn't it?
Yeah.
Safety first.
Sadly.
Just before we wrap it up,
I didn't realise this.
And again, just going to my
font of all knowledge, the BBC.
So 5 days ago, they were reporting the final 2 rounds of the European pool matches that were postponed earlier this week
will not be rearranged. Premiership Rugby has confirmed.
And it's basically saying that the decision was made by EPCR executive Darren Charles. And basically means the cancellations mean Exeter faces a greater challenge to defend their title.
Right. Okay, mate. No, I didn't know that. So essentially, those rounds are cancelled, just completely cancelled.
Yeah, that's how the article reads.
That's how the article reads. The final 2 rounds
of the pool matches that were postponed earlier this week will not be rearranged.
Okay, so they must be looking at another just complete rejig of the competition for the final rounds then, for the knockout stages, essentially.
It must be, I guess. I don't know.
Because you'll have to, in some way, decide who's going through and who's not, isn't it? Going by that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just mad, isn't it? But
I think they should probably just potentially just ditch it out altogether and concentrate on each country's home games and then focus on the Six Nations.
Yeah,
Six Nations.
I agree. When it was announced that the French government were making the decision they made to sort of pull these round of games, I think at that point they probably just said, right, let's knock Europe on the head this season and everyone focus on the domestic games, isn't it? Because it's just the European competition's a bit of a mess, or more of a mess than the domestic games anyway, with having to completely restructure how it's done this season, and then all the cancelled games with the 28-0 results and all that sort of thing. It's 28 points to nil, isn't it? It's just 5 points to nil, isn't it, with the 28-0 automatic or default results. It's just, I think it sort of devalues the competition a bit, and people lose interest. I feel like I've lost a bit of interest already, and it's not even into round 2, is it? So,
No.
But yeah, I would agree. I mean, I suppose we'll have to wait to see what the announcement is as to how they're going to restructure it for the final rounds then, because if they can pull a rabbit out of a hat, then fair play. But
good luck to them.
It's just never going to be the ideal solution. I can't see how you can do it. And if you lose the likes of Chiefs, the reigning champions, whichever way you do it, that's just, to me, that completely devalues, because it's just not right, is it?
Well, it just seems unfair on them, doesn't it? Not giving them the opportunity to.
Yeah, unfair on them and unfair on the. That's why I said it devalues the competition. If you haven't got the reigning champions having a fair go at defending their crown, then it that means you haven't really got the best sides in the competition in the lat stages and everything, isn't it? But we shall see. You got to lose. Something's got to give, isn't it? Like, that's what a lot of people are talking about. At some stage, something's got to give, and nobody wants to lose the Lions at the end goal of it all, is it? So
no. Just looking at stuff, Razzie Erasmus is basically saying he wants it to go ahead. They want it to go ahead.
He's saying he'll take any option just for it to crack on, even if that means playing it over here. I think he said, hasn't he? But so it'll be interesting. I think they're making a decision on that next month, isn't it?
I think so, mate. Yeah. Or was it
I think so, mate. Yeah. Or was it at the end of this month? Or they pushed that back?
I don't know if there's a sort of fixed date. I saw an article a couple of days ago saying the decision will be made next month, but whether that's sort of by the end of this month to be announced next month or whatever. But
we'll see.
It's just I wouldn't like to be having to the one making these decisions. That's for sure.
No, mate, definitely not.
No, mate, definitely not. No, definitely not.
All right, mate. Well, listen, that wraps it up.
All right, mate. Well, listen, that wraps it up.
Okay, mate.
We'll be back next week.
We'll be back next week.
Probably just more chat about
news and what's going on.
So yeah.
So yeah.
Again soon, mate.
Hopefully be able to preview Premiership games next week as well.
Preview Premiership.
All being well.
Preview Premiership games. Good shout.
And the fantasy.
And the fantasy rugby, obviously.
And the fantasy rugby, obviously. That's why I keep you involved, mate.
The little bit that I can bring. There we go.
Absolutely, mate. No, mate, you bring a lot.
Absolutely, mate. No, mate, you bring a lot.
Thanks very much.
Put yourself down.
No worries.
On that note.
Have a fab day.
Cheers, mate.
Talk to you soon.
Cheers, mate. Take care.
Speak to you next week. Cheers.
Mate. Take care.
Bye.
Okay, so that is the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed listening. As I've said many times before, this podcast is brought to you by I Spy Surveys, so go check them out. They are based in Exeter, Devon. Podcast is available on all the kind of normal platforms such as YouTube, Spotify, Anchor and Apple Podcasts. So go on there, give us a like, review the podcast. If you think we're crap, that's fine. Tell us we're crap. Let us know what we can do to improve, or actually if you quite enjoy what we talk about, the ramblings of two Devonshire dumplings, then leave us a review. That'd be fantastic as well. As always, we are on Twitter at top2inchesrp, so go on there. We're getting a bit of a following on there now. I think we've got about 12 people following us, so that's quite cool. Leave us messages on there. Just check out the kind of contents that we put up. Rugby feed. Each episode is kind of dropped in there on a Thursday. So yeah, just get involved. Let us know what you're thinking, how you're feeling. Let's all kind of get through this together. Anyway, we will see you again next week.